Arise analyst Sam Amadi joins us now from our Abuja studio to discuss this and other topics. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. A question that has been going around and that I've been hearing quite a bit. Let me pose this to you. In terms of the next gubernatorial elections coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend, do you think between now and then the INEC chairman or anyone from INEC will come out officially to discuss the many hitches that were experienced with the IREV and BVAS softwares and maybe troubleshoot and, just give Nigerians some kind of confidence going into the electoral process again? Do you expect that any statements will be coming from INEC stables?
Well, I think that's what should have happened long ago. INEC should have been speaking officially right from day one. So, they should have addressed us. They would have. It's INEC's responsibility to restore confidence in the electoral system, not just the politicians. But what we have seen at INEC seem to have been blackmailed and conflicted so deeply that it has basically avoided its responsibility. So INEC ought to have been speaking, and INEC, as part of preparation for the March 11 election, should actually come and express what happened and reassure citizens. Because look, if INEC conducts an election where less turnout after the whole euphoria, the excitement of registration is about 20-something%, that's really very bad. So INEC should have its own organizational capital is at stake here as a regulator, election management body. And so it should be the first person swinging in the public, say, look, we need to have confidence, go out and vote. But for INEC to do that, INEC has to come to grips with what happened. INEC has to tell a story that is consistent, coherent, and persuasive. A story like, well, this is what happened, there was a glitch caused by technology, we have due diligence, but it failed. But when INEC, as it looks like, deliberately switched off, as it were metaphorically, switched off the light. So how does INEC come out? So I pity INEC is in a situation where it ought to be making explanations and reassuring people, but it's hard put because his first statement to say, we're not under the obligation to use technology. And then they're not saying, well, there were issues and all that. So it's difficult for INEC to construct a narrative right now. And that's really the danger. The danger is that INEC might play dead brain from now to November 11. And the dilemma for INEC will be, if INEC, which is easy to do, uses technology, the BVAS and the electronic transmission to guarantee the integrity of those elections. The worst outcome would be all the governorship elections, all the house elections are all in court. Everybody alleging and saying, cancel the election. Why? It didn't use the electronic transmission that is mandated. That would be like mayhem. The courts would just be swamped with cases, everybody alleging substantial non-compliance. So it's in INEC's interest to now say we have to use the electronic transmission, which they had already indicated and made provisions for. If they do it, then the integrity is restored. But at the same time, it poses a moral dilemma. Why didn't you use it? Because right now, there's really no narrative as to why INEC did not deploy the technology it had boasted about, had test run, has done stress tests, and said we are 80 to 90% ready, and has even budgeted about $170 million, I think, for protecting it from hacking. So really, it's really a tough time for INEC, largely self-inflicted, but it needs to get off from the rut and swing up and start talking to Nigerians to say, these are the reassurances we can put in place for you. This is a guarantee of this is what we've learned from the problem. If the failure was technical, we've come around that technical problem. And this is the redundancies we have built around, for example, in places where there were inadequate beavers, maybe one instead of 2 or 3, as INEC promised, we've provided additional. There will be a redundancy in the case that if one beaver doesn't work, this will be used. In cases where, like some reports suggest, the pruning officers, the ad hoc workers were not familiar with the use of beavers or how to transmit result, INEC will come and say, we've got a crash program and we've dealt with that, and now everybody has capacity to transmit, and everybody has a password. These are some of the things INEC should be doing to reassure people for the March 11. Again, let's not forget, March 11 election is actually much more emotive because they're dealing with local situations where some people really want to get rid of their governor or want to get rid of their House of Assembly member, or some people really want to elect a particular governor. So you're going to see a much more violent, God forbid, responses in their massive flaw. A national election is such that the transaction cost of putting up a national protest is extensive and must be deliberately planned. But in local elections, you could see sporadic violence erupt here and there. And so I would argue, that ironically, there's more is at stake in local elections in terms of law and order, and then there's greater need for more vigilance, for more regularity, and of course a much more efficient and ethically organized election.
All right, Dr. Sam. First of all, with the talk about semantics, some would say, because electronic transmission. So, according to the words of Senate President Ahmed Lawan, he says no electronic transfer. And the back and forth we are beginning to see in terms of interpretation to the Electoral Act. INEC is not statute bound to use the beavers machine to transmit results. What would you be advising the electorate, one, and also the political parties, two? Because as it stands right now, a lot of people have given their own interpretation to all that happened on the 25th of February.
Well, first, the court will give the final interpretation, and then hopefully it gets to the Supreme Court and they say so. But look, Lawal made a law, and he recognizes that the debate was, should there be electronic transmission? He recalls also that the first draft of that, in fact, he had to come out to dispel the rumor when it was reported that they had connived to remove electronic transmission. So he knew that history. And if anybody goes to the preparatory note of the legislator, you will see the discussions. At the end of the day, they settled on one thing, that's what Section 60 captured. We leave it to INEC to choose a mode. Now, INEC, through rulemaking process, chose a mode. Now, when people argue that it's not mandatory on INEC, I think they are being duplicitous. Now, check it. Clause 40, the one that talks about mandatory transfer, is 38. The same 40 is what says, 40 of the same regulation says that where there is overvoting, meaning that the results that you collect on paper, like INEC did, is less than the Beaver's report of accreditation, or more rather, there's overvoting. The same law says it shall be cancelled. Now, when they were collecting results at ICC, to tell you that INEC knows that those provisions are compulsory, the INEC chairman asks, after each state made a presentation of the collected result, the question he asks them is, are there votes cancelled because of violence, overvoting? The returning officers, the collecting officers or returning officers for those states always say some votes were cancelled. You say, why? Because overvoting. In more than 4, 5, 6 states, there were incidences of cancellation by overvoting. Where did they derive the power from? From the same regulation that people are saying is not binding. I don't want to go into the semantic of law. I teach administrative law, and that's why I argue everywhere in the world, okay, I'll give you one simple example. There is a provision about Federal High Court Act, just like we have the Electoral Act. And it says the chief judge should make regulations and rules for the court proceeding. The chief judge makes that rule by himself. It becomes law. It's a guidance. He says you must file your rules in this way. Nobody ever suggests to a judge that it is a liberty in any adjudication to choose the mode in which the rules operate. The rules are binding. You have option. The chief judge can change the rules tomorrow. He can come and, through formal rulemaking process, enact amendments and change those rules. Until that is done, those rules are binding. So it's what you call Monday quarterbacking. You know, after Sunday football or baseball, you come on Monday, goals has been scored. You now say, well, it's not compulsory. That's not true. Even by document, by writing, they say so. Now, what should the parties do? That's a good question. Now, the problem is that the reason why we didn't hear much violence in the polling unit was this assurance that Beavers was like a magic bullet. So what happened? Voters went there, voted, and nobody knew that, look, even if you break anybody's head and wait for them and cancel the results or wale them or scatter the result or tear the result, once it's uploaded, you have an evidence that you cannot deface. That's what created the restraint from violence. People were so assured that their vote counted. We heard people like Mike Igini, former rec, who knew everything about this system, saying, Nigerians, go to sleep. This electronic transmission is a magic. Nobody can crack it. So tomorrow, on March 11, when people don't know the state of Beavers, you're going to see people go to those polling units fully armed, and they're going to not just vote and peacefully go home that they have won. They're going to vote, they're going to follow the polling officers, they're going to storm the collection centers because they know that except there is transmission of those results electronically for the polling unit, they cannot guarantee. We've seen results that INEC accepted, multiple mutilations, tear here, tear there, cancel there, cancel there. People are now saying the whole results are not uploaded. Now, INEC has uploaded almost most of the results on the IRF now. People are going there now and saying, this is the result I took away. It doesn't match. Now the question is, why are you uploading result after many days? This is what the Electoral Act and the INEC guideline wanted to avoid, that you upload it so that there be no instances of people fighting, killing each other to capture the result and tear it. Why would you tear a result when they have electronic version? And the law, the Electoral Act says, if you go to court and there's a dispute between that result you have mutilated and the result that has been uploaded, the one that will count is the one that's uploaded. Now, see the magic and the fraud. Now that you have uploaded it, you know that at the evidence level, what will trump the super evidence is the IRF report. That's what the Electoral Act says. So if I produce a written report, a result, it says I won 500, and you brought the one that says you won 300, and then the one the IRF says I got 200, the law says, the court, because the one on the IRF, the one that is electronic, is credible. They say that one will trump this. That's the essence of the electronic transmission. Now, this result have been uploaded after many days, and people are saying what you uploaded does not match. So voters now are going to go to these elections totally with no confidence in the electronic transmission. And therefore, they will resort to self-help. In the old form, we do it bumper to bumper. When you finish the voting and it's counted, and the IPO enters the vehicle to go to the collection center, you drive with him bumper to bumper, hit him off. If possible, somebody is coming to hijack the written result, you too try to hijack. We're going to see, God forbid, if we don't take care, a resurgence of the same level of violence we used to see in the past. Why? Because there is no electronic transmission. So the political parties themselves might be thinking again now about self-help. How do they build up enough defense force structure? Now they talk about the structure. So everybody's going to go back to the fact that, look, it's not about who voted for me. It's about, do I have the structure, which some call criminal structure of criminality? Do I have the heavy hands, big feet that will kick and box to make sure that when I win by vote, my win stays? That's really the problem, and that's the problem with elections in the third world. The idea of competitive politics is built around the fact that the coercive power of the state is not monopolized, that the police, the regulator, the INEC, everybody is neutral, and none of the partisans can control and use those institutions to block the competitor. Now we're going to an election where people don't have a sense of confidence in the process. And they're saying, look, how do we believe that we will not see multiple mutilated, cancelled results up and down? People manufacture their own, people fabricate things. That was what this on the spot, real time, the memo by Festus Okoye says, November 2022, it says that it will be transmitted for the unit real time. How can anybody believe that an agency with that level of pedigree and competence, professors, great guys, Professor Kuna, Professor this, there are many of them that I know them very well, how can they ever issue an official memo to parties and stakeholders that result will be transmitted real time from polling units, and they come back and say that the regulation is not binding on us and we never intended it, and after many days they are now uploading the IRF. So really the challenge in March 11 is that yes, we want to move forward, we want to secure our country. Oh, we have a printer elect, everybody should sign on. Let's sing peace, peace, peace. But as a verse in the Bible says, they will say peace, peace, so suddenly violence overtake them. We hope that INEC comes out clear to tell the voters of Nigeria that on this day, we couldn't do this because we have this challenge, but today, we promise you we will do that. Now, if they don't do so, it tells one story. They are still not prepared to guarantee the integrity of the election. If they do so, then the question will not be whether the explanation is good enough. And so they are in a horn of a dilemma. They just have to cater for the other election of March 11. But they have to do that with a great guilt.
Dr. Sam Amadi, Arise News analyst, thank you so much for your insights and analysis on the program.